03:42 hours, Gulf of Aden. The radar alarms scream. 31 fast-moving blips appear on the screen. A U.S. Navy supply ship, alone in open waters, is being surrounded. Engines roar. Radios crackle. Every sailor is at battle stations. These aren't fishermen. They're armed pirates closing in fast. What happens next will test the courage and training of an unarmed crew against impossible odds. Stay until the end to find out how the U.S. Navy turned the tide in the largest pirate assault ever recorded. If you believe in Navy strength and real courage at sea, like this video, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay ready for the next mission. The Gulf of Aden is one of the most dangerous stretches of water in the world. It lies between Yemen on the north and Somalia on the south. Every year, more than 20,000 ships pass through this narrow route, carrying oil, food, and cargo between Asia, Europe, and the United States. It's a vital lifeline for global trade. But for years, it's also been a hunting ground for Somali pirates. By 2010, piracy in this region was out of control. Somalia had no stable government. Fishing communities, ruined by foreign trawlers, turned to hijacking ships to survive. What began as desperate acts soon became organized crime. Pirate groups used speedboats, satellite phones, and heavy weapons. They attacked tankers, cargo ships, and even humanitarian vessels. The UN called it the most serious threat to maritime security since World War II. To protect this lifeline, the U.S. Navy and its allies began patrolling the area. The operation was known as Combined Task Force 151, a multinational mission to stop piracy. The U.S. Navy played a central role. Its warships escorted cargo convoys, rescued hostages, and hunted pirate motherships. But even with destroyers and helicopters nearby, the ocean was vast. Not every ship could be guarded. One of those ships was the USNS Walter S. Deal, a Navy supply ship. She was part of the Lewis and Clark class, big, slow, and unarmed except for light defensive weapons. Her mission was not to fight, but to feed. These supply ships carried fuel, food, and ammunition to frontline warships. Without them, destroyers and carriers couldn't stay at sea. The crew of the Deal were not combat sailors. They were engineers, technicians, cooks, and cargo handlers. But they trained for emergencies. They knew how to respond to threats, from fires to hostile boarding. On this mission, their job was simple: sail from Djibouti to Bahrain, delivering supplies to the Fifth Fleet. The weather that morning was calm. The sea was flat, the sky was clear, and visibility stretched for miles. Routine. The crew went about their work. Some were checking cargo containers, others monitoring fuel lines. The radar screen showed nothing unusual. Then, just after 03:40 hours, the calm broke. The radar operator saw fast-moving dots appear on the edge of the screen, more than 24 of them. The contacts were small, scattered, and closing fast. At first, the officer thought they were local fishing boats. But within minutes, the pattern changed. The small vessels began to form a wide circle around the ship. The bridge called it in. Multiple high-speed contacts approaching from the south, distance 7 nautical miles. Captain Thomas Rains, commanding officer of the Deal, gave the order. "Set condition 1. All stations, prepare for possible hostile action." Sirens echoed through the corridors. Sailors rushed to their defensive posts. The ship's 50-caliber machine guns were loaded and manned. The long-range acoustic device, known as the LRAD, was activated, a non-lethal sound cannon used to warn or disorient attackers. Through binoculars, the crew could now see them. Dozens of small skiffs, each packed with men. Some carried rifles. Others had rocket-propelled grenades. A few larger boats followed behind, motherships carrying fuel and ammunition. It was not a random encounter. It was a coordinated attack. The pirates used a classic swarm tactic, overwhelming their target with speed and numbers. 31 boats closing in from all sides. The Deal was not built for combat. Her top speed was only 20 knots. Against small pirate skiffs moving at 30 or more, she couldn't run. Her only chance was to defend and delay until help arrived. The crew sent a distress call through the U.S. Navy network. "This is USNS Walter S. Deal. Multiple fast contacts approaching. Possible hostile intent. Request immediate assistance." The call reached a nearby destroyer, the USS Farragut, part of the same task force. The Farragut's captain ordered a helicopter to prepare for launch, but it would take time, at least 15 minutes. The Deal had to hold on until then. On the bridge, Captain Rains stayed calm. Years of training kicked in. He ordered the helmsman to turn the ship into the waves, creating a wake that could disrupt the pirates' approach. The engine room increased speed. The gunners tracked the incoming skiffs. The pirates didn't slow down. They split into two groups, one circling to the port side, another to starboard. Over the radio, the crew could hear chatter, voices shouting in Somali and Arabic. The distance closed fast, 5 miles, then 3, then 1. The men on the deck could now see faces. Some covered, some not. The pirates raised rifles, pointing at the bridge. They fired warning shots into the air. The U.S. Navy supply ship was surrounded. 31 pirate boats, 90 men with weapons, a crew of 120 sailors and civilians. In that moment, the balance of power at sea would be tested. A supply ship had become a battleground, and the fight had just begun. At 03:45 hours, the first shots cracked across the water. Tracer rounds flashed from the pirate skiffs, streaking red across the dark waves. They weren't trying to sink the ship. They wanted to scare it into stopping. But the Deal didn't stop. The crew knew surrender was death. Captain Rains gave a clear command. "Maintain course, defensive posture only. Fire warning bursts if they close within 500 yards. His voice was calm, steady. Years of drills came down to this moment. The ship's gunners opened up. Short, controlled bursts from the .50 caliber mounts echoed across the sea. The heavy machine guns kicked, sending water splashes near the lead skiffs. The pirates veered off but didn't retreat. They regrouped, faster, more aggressive. The Deal's engines roared as it turned into the oncoming swarm. The wake rose high, tossing smaller boats aside. Over the bridge loudspeakers, the LRAD activated. A deafening, focused beam of sound that could travel miles. The blast was like a pressure wave. Pirates clutched their ears, screaming, losing coordination. But some pressed on. RPGs were raised. One pirate fired too early. The rocket exploded harmlessly in the water. Another round struck the hull but failed to penetrate. The Deal's armor, though thin, held firm. By now, the Deal's distress call had been acknowledged by the USS Farragut, located 50 nautical miles away. The destroyer's MH-60R Seahawk helicopter was already airborne, armed with machine guns and guided rockets, but it would take more than 10 minutes to arrive. For the crew aboard Deal, those 10 minutes felt like forever. Inside the bridge, the atmosphere was tense but controlled. No panic. Just quick, sharp commands. The radar officer called out distances. The gunnery officer tracked targets manually. The communications chief kept the channel open with the Farragut. Outside, the sea was chaos. Pirate boats circled like hornets. Some tried to throw grappling hooks onto the hull. Others fired bursts from AK-47s. Bullets pinged against steel. The sailors below deck heard the dull thuds and vibrations, but kept working, sealing compartments, manning pumps, securing the engine room. At 03:51 hours, one skiff broke formation and charged directly toward the ship's stern. It carried 8 men, one holding an RPG. A gunner on the aft deck fired 3 short bursts. The rounds struck the waterline, tearing into the small boat's side. The skiff flipped, throwing men into the waves. Others hesitated, slowing their approach. The pirates were brave, desperate even, but untrained in military tactics. The Deal's crew worked as one. Every move was coordinated. Every command counted. Then came the sound that changed everything. The faint thump-thump of rotor blades. The Seahawk was approaching. At 03:55 hours, the helicopter appeared low over the horizon. Its lights were off, its guns armed. From above, the crew could see the swarm clearly. Dozens of boats, some now retreating, others still circling. The Seahawk's pilot radioed, "Farragut 1-2 on station, engaging hostile skiffs." The helicopter swooped in, flying low. Its side gunners opened fire, short warning bursts near the pirates' positions. The sound alone was enough to send panic through the attackers. Skiffs turned sharply, scattering in all directions. Some dropped weapons into the sea. Others sped toward the Somali coast. For a few moments, the battle was pure confusion. The Deal kept moving forward, maintaining speed and direction. The helicopter continued its passes, pushing the pirates farther away. By 04:03 hours, radar showed the nearest skiff retreating beyond range. The attack was over. The sea fell silent again. In less than 20 minutes, a swarm of 31 pirate boats had engaged a single U.S. Navy supply ship and lost. Captain Rains stood on the bridge, scanning the horizon. "Maintain alert. Track all contacts," he ordered. No cheers, no celebration, just relief. The crew stayed at stations for another hour, ensuring the area was clear. When the Farragut arrived, its crew helped search the area. Several pirates were pulled from the water, survivors from the capsized skiff. They were disarmed and detained. No U.S. personnel were hurt. The ship suffered minor damage, a dented rail, a few bullet holes, nothing more. Later, Navy intelligence confirmed that this had been one of the largest coordinated pirate attacks ever attempted in the Gulf of Aden. The pirates had used 2 motherships, possibly linked to a larger criminal network. They had expected an easy prize. Instead, they met a disciplined crew trained to fight back. The incident became a case study inside the Navy. It showed that even non-combat ships could defend themselves under pressure. It proved that training, communication, and courage mattered more than firepower. At 04:20 hours, the Deal's captain finally gave the order, "Stand down from general quarters." The crew exhaled. The danger had passed. But the questions had just begun. How did the crew repel such a massive swarm with minimal weapons? What systems and tactics made the difference? The answers lay not in luck, but in technology, teamwork, and preparation. The U.S. Navy doesn't rely on luck. Every action, every maneuver, every defensive step taken aboard the Walter S. Deal followed a plan. One built from decades of naval experience. A Navy supply ship isn't a warship. It has no missiles, no heavy cannons, and no thick armor. Its main purpose is logistics, keeping the fleet alive. But that doesn't mean it's helpless. Each of these ships carries layers of protection, systems, sensors, and trained sailors who know exactly what to do when a threat appears. The first line of defense is situational awareness. Navy ships use advanced radar systems that can track small, fast targets, even wooden boats, at long distances. The radar on the Deal detected those pirate skiffs over 7 nautical miles away. That early warning gave the crew time to react, lock down compartments, and prepare weapons. Next comes Force Protection Protocol, a strict system that defines how to respond when under threat. It starts with verbal warnings, then visual signals like flares or searchlights. If the threat continues, the crew fires warning shots. Only when an attack becomes clear do they fire to stop it. This process is called escalation of force. It ensures discipline under stress. The Deal also carried the LR-AID, or long-range acoustic device. It's not a weapon in the traditional sense. It is a focused sound beam that can reach over 150 decibels, louder than a jet engine. When aimed at approaching boats, it causes pain, disorientation, and confusion. It's used to deter attackers without killing them. During the pirate assault, the LRAD bought the crew precious seconds. Pirates lost coordination and their aim suffered. Then there are the ship's 50-caliber machine guns, simple, powerful, and reliable. Mounted on each side, these weapons can hit targets over a mile away. The gunners on the Deal trained weekly for scenarios like this one. They practiced target tracking, quick reloading, and communication with the bridge. When the attack began, that training paid off. Their short, controlled bursts were accurate enough to disable skiffs without wasting ammunition. But the most important part of the deal's defense wasn't hardware, it was coordination. The ship wasn't fighting alone. The moment the distress signal went out, multiple systems came alive. The combined Task Force 151 network tracked the message and relayed it to nearby warships. Within minutes, the USS Farragut was alerted and a helicopter team was scrambled. This coordination is what makes the U.S. Navy unmatched. Even a support vessel can call on destroyers, aircraft, and satellites in seconds. The communication is instant, encrypted, and standardized across fleets. Everyone speaks the same operational language. The MH-60R Seahawk that arrived on station was part of that system. The Seahawk is the Navy's eyes and ears over the ocean. It can fly at over 180 miles per hour, carry Hellfire missiles, and provide real-time imagery to commanders. In this case, the Seahawk didn't have to fire a single rocket. Its presence alone, and the precision of its warning bursts, broke the pirates' morale. Another reason the attack failed lies in training and mindset. Every sailor aboard the Deal knew their station, their job, and their chain of command. The Navy drills constantly: firefighting, boarding defense, first aid, communications, and live fire exercises. These drills are not optional. They build what the Navy calls muscle memory under chaos. When the pirates attacked, the crew didn't freeze. They followed protocol, step by step. The Navy also invests heavily in threat simulation. Before deployment, crews run through scenarios modeled on real pirate attacks. Radar operators learn to identify swarming patterns. Gunners train to distinguish hostile from civilian boats. Even the cooks and engineers are drilled on how to reinforce doors and secure compartments in a boarding attempt. Technology plays a role, but discipline holds it all together. The Deal's bridge team maintained communication despite gunfire and confusion. The engineers kept power stable to ensure speed and maneuverability. The medical staff prepared triage stations, even though they hoped never to use them. The final layer of protection comes from naval presence. The U.S. Navy doesn't just defend its ships, it deters attacks before they happen. After the Deal incident, Task Force 151 increased patrol frequency in the Gulf of Aden. UAVs scanned pirate routes. Destroyers stayed closer to major shipping lanes. That show of force worked. Within a year, piracy in the region dropped by more than 70%. It's easy to think of power in terms of weapons, but at sea, power means readiness. A radar operator who doesn't miss a blip, a gunner who fires 3 perfect bursts, a captain who keeps his crew calm under attack. That's what turned the tide on that dark morning. Not luck, not coincidence, preparation. The Deal survived because every part of the Navy system, human and machine, worked together like a living organism. And when that happens, even a supply ship can fight like a warship. By sunrise, the Gulf of Aden was calm again. The sea that had been filled with gunfire and chaos only hours earlier now lay silent. The Walter S. Deal continued on its course, scarred but unbroken. Its hull carried bullet marks, but its flag still flew high. The USS Farragut remained in the area, coordinating cleanup and rescue operations. Several pirate skiffs were destroyed or abandoned. Others fled back toward Somalia's coastline. Navy teams recovered fuel drums, ladders, and weapons floating in the water, clear evidence of the planned boarding attempt. Out of the 31 pirate boats that started the attack, at least 9 were disabled or captured. 24 pirates were detained, later handed over to regional authorities under international law. For the Navy, this was not about revenge. It was about deterrence, sending a message. The sea is never lawless when the U.S. Navy sails it. No sailors on the Deal were injured. The crew's fast response and discipline prevented any casualties. Engineers quickly assessed the damage: small caliber bullet holes, a dented railing, and one cracked window on the bridge. Nothing that could stop a ship of steel and determination. Within hours, the event made it to command centers across the world. Reports flowed to Bahrain, Norfolk, and Washington. The Navy called it one of the largest single pirate assaults in modern history to be successfully repelled by a non-combat vessel. Military analysts later called it a textbook display of modern naval defense. News spread quickly. The incident drew global attention from shipping companies, defense experts, and world media. Many were shocked to learn that a logistics ship, not a destroyer or cruiser, had held off a small armada. Insurance companies called it a miracle. Naval officers called it professionalism. The deal's crew was quietly honored. No parades, no medals on television, just commendations sent to the men and women who stood firm when everything could have gone wrong. For them, it was just another mission completed. They had a saying, "If the fleet eats, we did our job." That day, they did far more than that. After the attack, the Navy reviewed its rules and tactics. The success of the deal proved that even support ships could play an active role in maritime security. More ships were later equipped with better sensors, LRADs, and armed teams. Training for civilian mariners improved. The lessons learned that morning shaped policy for years. Piracy in the Gulf of Aden began to fall sharply after 2011. Naval patrols increased. Regional governments, with international help, cracked down on pirate bases. By 2013, successful hijackings had dropped by over 80%. The Walter S. Deal kept sailing, its mission unchanged, its crew proud. For them, the sea would always hold danger. But now they knew something the world had forgotten. Even a ship meant to supply can stand and fight when duty calls. The outcome of that 20-minute battle wasn't just the survival of one ship. It was proof of something deeper, that courage and discipline are still the strongest weapons the Navy has. The ocean can look peaceful, but peace on the water is never guaranteed. Every wave hides risk. Every shadow could mean danger. For the U.S. Navy, that is the reality of life at sea. Constant vigilance, constant readiness. The Walter S. Deal was not built for battle, yet on that dark morning it stood its ground. A crew trained for logistics faced a swarm of armed pirates and didn't break. They didn't panic. They followed their training, trusted their captain, and held the line until help arrived. That kind of discipline is what separates the Navy from chaos. This story isn't just about one ship or one attack. It's about what happens when ordinary people are placed in extraordinary situations. The Deal's crew wasn't made up of frontline warriors. They were engineers, deckhands, cooks, and technicians, regular sailors who suddenly found themselves fighting for survival. And yet, they performed like a combat unit, calm, precise, unshaken. It also reminds us what true naval power means. It isn't only about missiles, aircraft carriers, or advanced destroyers. It's about the people, the training, the trust, and the teamwork that turn ships into symbols of resolve. The Deal's defense proved that power isn't always loud. Sometimes it's steady hands and clear minds under pressure. In the years since that attack, piracy has nearly disappeared from those waters. But the memory remains. Somewhere in the Gulf of Aden, the ocean still carries the echoes of that fight. The sound of gunfire, the beat of helicopter rotors, and the calm voice of a captain saying, "Hold your course." Every sailor who was there that night knows what it means to be ready, not for glory, not for headlines, but for each other. In the end, that's what defines the U.S. Navy: courage in silence, duty without hesitation, and strength without arrogance. Because out there, far from land, surrounded by nothing but waves and uncertainty, one truth stands: the sea belongs to no one, but safety belongs to those who stand watch. Thanks for watching. If you want more real stories of U.S. Navy missions, courage under fire, and unseen battles at sea, make sure you like this video, subscribe, and stay with us for the next deep dive into modern warfare at sea.